Open this safe and $200 million is yours, the billionaire sneered. But the black Maid's son unlocked it in just 60 seconds. Age does not define ability, courage, or intelligence. But before we dive into what happens next, I'd love to know, where are you tuning in from today? Drop your country in the comment below and please like the video. Thank you. Now let's continue. Eli Turner sat cross-legged on the worn carpet of his tiny apartment, the faint hum of a leaky radiator filling the room. Outside, the city rumbled with its usual chaos. Car horns, the muffled roar of a train, the distant yells of street vendors trying to sell late-night snacks. Inside, the apartment smelled faintly of old laundry and burnt coffee. It was cramped, barely enough space for Eli's small desk, a second-hand sofa, and the twin bed he shared with his mother Marissa. At 10 years old, Eli had learned to navigate the world quietly. He had learned that being seen often brought unnecessary attention. In his neighborhood, being noticed could mean confrontation. School, it could mean teasing. At home, it meant Marissa worrying about him. And yet, he wasn't invisible. His mind was a vault of observation, memorization, and deduction. He saw things most adults didn't notice. The faint tremor in someone's hand, the pause before a lie, the subtle repetition of a routine. Marissa moved through the apartment with practiced efficiency, folding laundry while keeping an ear tuned to Eli's soft murmurs. Her brown eyes were warm but weary, carrying the weight of years of overwork. She had worked double shifts for nearly a decade, first as a nurse's assistant, then at a pharmacy, and now juggling both to keep them afloat. Their apartment wasn't much, but it was home, a fragile cocoon against a world that often seemed indifferent. Eli's thoughts, however, were elsewhere. He stared at the stack of math textbooks beside him, their edges frayed and covers dotted with pencil marks, but his mind was on the Whitmore estate. Dalton Whitmore, the tech billionaire whose ego rivaled his fortune, had issued a challenge that had become the talk of the city's elite. Anyone could try to crack the code of his nearly indestructible safe. And the prize? $200 million. Eli's fingers traced the outline of his notebook, where he had written down every detail he remembered from the day Marissa had accompanied him to Whitmore's mansion. He had seen the way Whitmore staggered slightly as he turned the dial, the pauses he made when he muttered numbers to himself, the tiny scratches on the safe surface that hinted at past attempts. No adult had noticed him, and yet he had absorbed it all. Could a 10-year-old boy succeed where seasoned professionals had failed? Eli felt a flutter of fear and excitement in equal measure. For years, he had been careful, quiet, avoiding trouble. But now, something inside him stirred, a spark that refused to be extinguished. Maybe, just maybe, he could step out of the shadows and prove that invisibility wasn't the only way to survive. Eli! Marissa's soft voice pulled him from his thoughts. She was folding the last of his school uniforms, her fingers deft despite their tiredness. You've been quiet all evening. Everything okay? Eli hesitated, staring down at his notebook. I think I can do it, Mom. I think I can try the safe. Marissa froze, her hand hovering in the air. The safe. Eli, that's not. It's Whitmore's challenge, Eli interrupted gently, his voice steadier than he felt. Anyone can try. No. I want to try. Marissa's eyes widened with concern. Eli, that man is dangerous. He's not just rich, he's reckless. And drunk half the time. You could. I'll be careful, Eli said, determination settling over his nerves like armor. I've been watching. I remember everything. I can do it. Marissa exhaled slowly, her shoulders slumping in resignation. She had raised him to be brave, even when the world seemed determined to squash that courage. All right, she said finally, her voice tight but supportive. But you promise me you stay safe. No heroics. Promise me that. I promise, Eli whispered, though a part of him knew that sometimes stepping forward meant risking everything. That night, as he lay in bed, he closed his eyes and replayed every movement he had observed at Whitmore's estate. The safe was a puzzle, but the pieces were in his memory. And for the first time in his young life, Eli felt the heavy weight of possibility. That maybe courage could outweigh fear, that maybe one small person could make a difference. The morning sun slanted through the curtains of Eli's apartment, painting golden stripes across the floorboards. The city outside was waking in fits and starts, bus engines coughing to life, the clatter of early footsteps on concrete, the distant wail of a siren. But inside, the apartment was quiet, save for the hum of the refrigerator and the rhythmic tapping of Eli's pencil on the notebook. Today was the day. Eli's heart thumped in a steady, rapid rhythm as he packed his small backpack. He slipped in his notebook a pen, a water bottle, and a granola bar. Every item was deliberate, every movement precise. He had rehearsed this morning in his mind countless times. The safe, the numbers, the dial, the exact sequence he had memorized. Marissa hovered near the doorway, a mixture of pride and fear etched into her features. Her hands clasped the strap of her work bag nervously. "Eli," she said softly, "remember what I told you. Be careful. Watch him. Keep to the shadows if you have to. But I know you can do this." Eli smiled faintly. "I won't let you down, Mom." His small hand brushed hers, a silent promise. The drive to Whitmore's mansion was tense but uneventful. The sprawling estate rose like a fortress above the manicured lawns, its gates glinting in the morning light. Security cameras tracked their approach, and the hum of surveillance systems was faint but omnipresent. Eli kept his gaze low, avoiding the officers stationed at the gate, keeping himself small and unobtrusive, just like Marissa had taught him. Inside, the mansion buzzed with activity. Technicians and engineers scurried from one end to another, their laptops open, their tools scattered across marble countertops. Eli's eyes flitted over the room, taking in every detail. The hum of servers in the corner, the flicker of monitors displaying security footage, the faint scent of leather, whiskey, and machine oil. Whitmore himself sat behind a massive oak desk, a glass of whiskey in hand. His expression one of bored amusement. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and carried himself like a man used to being obeyed. His sharp eyes flicked toward Eli for a moment before returning to the papers in front of him. Eli's small legs trembled as he walked further into the room, his palms slick with sweat. He remembered the humiliation, the cruel words, the times he had been ignored or dismissed because of his age, because of who he was, because of the color of his skin. But he also remembered Marissa's tired smile, the tiny apartment they had struggled to keep, the sacrifices she had made. And above all, he remembered the combination. He stepped closer, just enough to be within sight of the safe. The technicians didn't notice him at first. They were too focused on their own calculations and failures. Eli's voice was small but clear when he finally spoke. "Mr. Whitmore, may I try?" The room froze. A pen hovered in midair, a laptop screen blinked, and all eyes turned toward the boy. Eli stood there, his bright green hoodie tied around his waist, a cartoon character t-shirt stark against the muted tones of the room. His worn sneakers shuffled slightly as he stared at the safe, then back at Whitmore. Whitmore's expression shifted from confusion to disbelief, then to something darker. A cruel laugh escaped him. You want to play with my safe." His voice dripped with condescension. "Did I hear that right, child? You think you can?" "Yes, sir," Eli said, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at his chest. "You said anyone. I want to try." A murmur rippled through the room. Some of the technicians exchanged glances, unsure whether to intervene. Others leaned forward with curiosity. Marissa's hand went to Eli's shoulder, but she didn't stop him. She had seen the spark in his eyes, the unyielding determination. Whitmore slammed his glass down, the whiskey sloshing over the rim. "Anyone? You think I meant someone like you? A kid? From where you come?" His words dripped with venom. "No father around to teach you the world, huh? Typical." Eli swallowed, his throat tight. But he didn't step back. He gripped the straps of his backpack tighter, his other hand brushing the edge of the safe. Every step, every inch forward was a battle against fear. Sasha Gates, the lead technician, stepped forward. Her presence was calm but firm, an anchor in the chaos. "Mr. Whitmore," she said, voice cold and authoritative, "you made a public offer. Anyone who opens that safe gets $200 million. The child meets the conditions. That's all there is to it. No qualifications. No exceptions." Whitmore's face turned red, the veins in his forehead pulsing. He waved his hand dismissively. "Fine. Let the child try. But when he fails, remember this moment." Eli closed his eyes briefly, picturing the movements he had memorized. He counted silently. Left 3 full rotations, right 2, left 1, right to the final number. His hands moved deliberately, fingers finding the dial's edges. Each turn was precise. Each stop calculated. The click came softly, almost imperceptibly. But the door swung open smoothly. The room erupted into disbelief. Stacks of bonds, bundles of cash, and confidential documents were revealed. Whitmore's expression shifted from smugness to shock to unrestrained fury. "You cheated," he bellowed, advancing toward Eli. Sasha moved instantly, blocking him. Other technicians raised their phones, recording. Eli stumbled but remained upright, supported by Marissa's steady presence behind him. Whitmore grabbed at the boy, but Sasha's intervention was swift and decisive, leaving the billionaire glaring at the open safe, humiliated and powerless. The scene was a storm of outrage, courage, and tension. Within minutes, footage was recorded, documented, and secured. Eli had done the impossible, not just opening the safe, but confronting a lifetime of prejudice and fear. As the group exited the mansion, Marissa held Eli close. "You did it," she whispered. "You were brave. You didn't let him make you invisible." Eli's heart pounded, but a smile broke through. For the first time, he realized that courage didn't always mean absence of fear. Sometimes it meant standing in the light, knowing that being seen was part of the journey. By the time Eli and Marissa reached the car, the mansion gates had receded behind them like the boundary between two worlds, one of fear and oppression, the other of courage and possibility. Sasha Gates, driving, had her phone mounted on the dashboard, ready to upload and preserve the evidence they had captured. Every frame mattered. The safe swinging open, Whitmore's outburst, the vile words he had thrown at Eli, and the moment of unshakable bravery when a 10-year-old boy had defied the most powerful man in the room. As they sat together at their modest apartment, Eli focused on his studies while Marissa reflected on the journey. They had traveled from invisibility to visibility, from fear to empowerment. They had confronted prejudice head-on and emerged not just unbroken but stronger. The world had witnessed the truth, and it had responded with justice, accountability, and recognition of Eli's remarkable courage. The courthouse loomed like a fortress, its stone pillars casting long shadows across the bustling city streets. Media vans lined the sidewalks, their satellite dishes aimed skyward, broadcasting live feeds. Protesters holding signs that read, "Pay Eli," "Children deserve justice," and "End workplace racism," chanted rhythmically, their voices carrying through the morning air. Inside, security personnel guided the crowds, allowing only those with proper credentials to enter. Among them, Marissa held Eli's hand tightly, her own heart pounding with a mixture of fear and anticipation. It had been nearly a year since the day Eli opened Whitmore's safe. The events of that night, captured on Sasha Gates's unflinching camera, had sparked a wave of social, legal, and financial upheaval. Today, all that momentum culminated in the federal courthouse, where Eli's case, both civil and criminal, would be presented in full. Marissa whispered to Eli as they took their seats in the courtroom. "Remember, baby, this is about the truth. Just be yourself." Eli, now 11, nodded quietly. His normally bright eyes were tempered by a seriousness far beyond his years. He had spent months preparing, speaking with child psychologists and lawyers to ensure he could testify without fear or hesitation. The boy who had once been invisible in a world of prejudice had now become a symbol of courage and integrity. The courtroom doors opened, and the legal teams filed in. The prosecution, a coalition of civil rights attorneys and federal prosecutors, presented their meticulously organized evidence. The video of Whitmore offering $200 million to anyone who could open the safe, including his repeated statement of anyone, captured with 12 witnesses present. The footage of Eli successfully opening the safe, followed by Whitmore's assault on him and the shoving of Marissa against a wall. Photographs and documentation of the safe's contents, showing offshore accounts, unreported income, and evidence of financial fraud. Testimonies from former employees detailing years of systemic discrimination, underpayment, and hostile work environments. The judge, an older woman with sharp eyes that seemed to see straight through pretense, presided with a quiet authority. "This courtroom is now in session," she declared, her voice echoing in the high-ceilinged chamber. "Let the record reflect the presence of the plaintiff, the defendant, and all legal representatives." Whitmore, once confident and commanding, sat slouched in his seat, the weight of public scrutiny and the collapse of his empire evident in the lines on his face. His once pristine suit appeared rumpled, his hair slightly disheveled, and his hands fidgeted nervously as he glanced at the rows of journalists taking notes and recording every moment. The prosecution called Eli to the stand first. Marissa guided him forward, whispering, "You're safe, baby. Just tell the truth." Eli climbed the steps to the witness stand, his small frame juxtaposed against the tall, imposing structure of the courtroom. The attorney handed him the microphone. He cleared his throat, his voice steady but quiet. I remembered the combination because I watched Mr. Whitmore at the party 6 days before. He began. "I wasn't trying to steal anything. I just remembered what I saw. And I asked if I could try because he said anyone could open the safe. He said $200 million to anyone who could. I didn't know he would hit me or shove my mom. I was scared, but I just did what I remembered." A hush fell over the courtroom. The simplicity and truth of his statement carried a weight no adult testimony could rival. Whitmore's attorney attempted to interrupt, suggesting the child had been coached by his mother. Marissa remained calm, shaking her head. "I didn't tell him anything," she said firmly. "He did it on his own. I only watched." The prosecution played the original video for the jury, every frame uncut and authentic. Whitmore's laughter, the mocking slurs, the threats, and the physical assault were all visible. The safe opening, smooth and precise, demonstrated the boy's exceptional memory. The jury, media, and observers could not look away. The evidence was irrefutable. The civil attorneys then presented the class action claims from former employees. Dozens of individuals, once silenced, now gave statements and testimony detailing years of discrimination. Pay disparities, promotions denied based on race, verbal abuse disguised as jokes, all corroborated a consistent pattern of systemic prejudice within Whitmore Enterprises. Financial documents were introduced, including offshore account statements and discrepancies between reported and actual income. Forensic accountants testified to years of tax evasion, money laundering, and fraudulent contracts. The courtroom murmured as the scale of Whitmore's deception became clear. The child who had been invisible to the world had uncovered the foundation of a corporate empire built on greed, arrogance, and prejudice. Whitmore's defense crumbled under the weight of evidence. Claims that the $200 million offer was made in jest or under duress were countered with witness testimonies, signed documents, and the audio-video record. Psychologists testified about the rarity of eidetic memory, confirming Eli's abilities were genuine and uncoached. Attempts to minimize the assault failed in the face of clear medical evidence. Bruises on Eli's arms, verified reports of Marissa's injury, and video evidence of the violent interaction. Throughout the trial, Eli remained composed, answering questions with clarity and honesty. He explained his actions without embellishment, demonstrating a courage and poise that contrasted sharply with Whitmore's defensive, increasingly frantic demeanor. After 8 months of testimony, cross-examinations, and expert analysis, the case was ready for the jury's deliberation. The tension in the courtroom was palpable, the atmosphere charged with anticipation. Every observer understood the significance of the moment, a reckoning not only for one billionaire but for the broader societal issues he represented. 4 hours later, the jury returned. The foreperson read the verdict slowly, each word resonating like a bell. Guilty on all counts. The breach of contract is enforceable. The defendant shall pay the sum of $200 million to the plaintiff, Eli Anderson. Additionally, punitive damages are awarded to the plaintiff's mother, Marissa Anderson, and compensation is granted to the class of former employees. The defendant is found liable for assault, discrimination, and financial malfeasance as documented in the case files. Gasps of relief and applause echoed through the gallery. Tears streamed down Marissa's face as she hugged Eli tightly. The young boy, once invisible in a world that had tried to teach him to disappear, now stood recognized, vindicated, and celebrated. The courtroom, once a place of tension and fear, became a space of justice realized. Outside, the news spread rapidly. Social media exploded once again, this time with images of the courtroom, of Eli's courage, and of Marissa's unwavering support. Public celebrations erupted, and foundations dedicated to civil rights, children's advocacy, and workplace equality pledged support inspired by the case. Whitmore, escorted by court officers, faced the consequences of his actions. The empire he had built over decades was dismantled not only by legal judgment but by the unwavering truth and bravery of a single child and the collective courage of those who chose to speak out. As the family returned home, their journey from fear to empowerment, from invisibility to recognition, reflected a broader truth. Courage, integrity, and the refusal to accept injustice can dismantle even the most fortified structures of power. Eli's story became a symbol, a beacon for children and adults alike, demonstrating that one voice, one choice, can alter the course of history. Marissa looked at her son, now engaged in his studies, and whispered, "You showed the world that being brave matters, that truth matters, that we matter." Eli smiled softly. "I just wanted to do what was right, Mama." And in that quiet, ordinary moment, they both knew something extraordinary had occurred. The safe was open. Justice had been served. And a generation watching would remember that courage, honesty, and perseverance could change everything, even in 60 seconds. The first rays of morning sunlight filtered through the blinds of the Anderson family's new home, casting warm stripes across the living room floor. The small apartment they had once called home, with its leaky faucets, cramped rooms, and peeling wallpaper, was now a memory, a reminder of the struggles they had endured and overcome. In its place stood a bright, airy house with space for learning, play, and growth. The yard, carefully tended by Marissa, became a symbol of their resilience. Every flower planted, every tree nurtured, a testament to survival and hope. Eli sat at the large oak table in the center of the living room, pencils and graph paper scattered around him. He was engrossed in a complex mathematics problem, his brow furrowed in concentration. The quiet hum of determination filled the space. Marissa moved around the kitchen preparing breakfast, her mind occasionally drifting to the whirlwind of the past 18 months. The assault, the viral video, the legal battles, the relentless media attention, the class action lawsuits, and finally, the courtroom victory. It had been exhausting, terrifying, and life-changing. Yet here they were, alive, whole, and emboldened by truth and justice. Marissa thought of the hundreds of former Whitmore employees who had come forward, courageously sharing their experiences of discrimination and harassment. People who had spent decades silenced by fear of retaliation. People who had been overlooked, undervalued, and dismissed. The legal victories had been more than just financial or punitive. They were symbolic, a dismantling of systemic injustice, a warning that the era of unchecked power and prejudice could end. Outside, the foundation Marissa had established in the months following the trial was beginning to take shape. Named the Eli Anderson Foundation for Children and Justice, its mission was simple yet ambitious. Empower children and families to speak up against discrimination, provide resources for education and legal advocacy, and support victims of workplace injustice. The first grant recipients included children who had faced barriers to education because of systemic inequities, families navigating legal battles, and communities historically neglected by the legal system. As she looked out the window, Marissa saw volunteers arriving for the Foundation's first community workshop. They carried boxes of school supplies, laptops, books, and pamphlets detailing legal rights and civic education. The energy was palpable. Parents, educators, lawyers, and children gathered, sharing stories, asking questions, and learning from one another. The Andersons' small family had become the nucleus of a movement, proof that one act of courage could ignite change far beyond its origin. Eli's gaze occasionally drifted to the photographs on the living room wall. Images from the courtroom, the protests outside Whitmore's estate, and the media coverage that had chronicled the collapse of a corporate empire built on greed and prejudice. He understood the gravity of what had happened, but in his childlike clarity, he also recognized something more profound. Justice had been a collaborative effort. His courage had mattered, yes, but so had Marissa's faith in him, Sasha Gates's decision to document the assault, the coalition of lawyers who meticulously pursued the case, and the hundreds of witnesses who refused to remain silent. Marissa knelt beside Eli, placing her hand on his small shoulder. "Do you know why this matters?" she asked softly. Eli looked up, his eyes wide but thoughtful. "Because we showed them that they can't just ignore us, that we're not invisible, that truth matters." "Yes," Marissa said, smiling. "And because now other children, other families, will see your story and know they can be brave too. Courage is contagious. Speaking up is contagious. And change can happen." They were interrupted by the buzz of Marissa's phone. It was a message from one of the Foundation's partners. A community center in a nearby city had requested a speaker series about Eli's story, the fight for justice, and the importance of standing against discrimination. Another message announced that a scholarship fund was being established in Eli's name, aimed at supporting underprivileged children with exceptional talent in academics, arts, or problem-solving. In the following weeks, the foundation expanded rapidly. Workshops, seminars, mentorship programs, and advocacy campaigns reached thousands of people across the country. The media, once focused on the downfall of Whitmore Enterprises, now highlighted stories of empowerment, resilience, and the transformative power of truth. Eli became a quiet symbol of intelligence and integrity, a child who had faced fear and adversity yet chose courage over silence. Marissa often reflected on the journey from the first harrowing day at Whitmore's estate to the establishment of the foundation. She remembered the fear, the anger, the countless sleepless nights, and the weight of uncertainty. But she also recalled the triumphs. The first media acknowledgement of their story, the moments of solidarity with other victims, the courtroom victory, and finally, the realization that they had built something lasting, something that could continue to make a difference long after the public attention had faded. One evening, after a long day of meetings and workshops, Marissa sat with Eli on the porch. The sky was painted with shades of orange and pink as the sun dipped below the horizon. The sounds of the neighborhood, children playing, dogs barking, neighbors chatting, created a serene backdrop to their reflection. "Do you ever think about Whitmore?" Marissa asked quietly. Eli considered for a moment. "Sometimes," he admitted. "But I don't feel scared anymore. I feel like I can make a difference. Like I know what to do if I see someone being treated unfairly." "That's right," Marissa said. "And that's why everything we went through mattered. Not just for us, but for everyone who might be watching, learning, or waiting for someone to stand up." She took his hand, squeezing gently. "You and I. We didn't just fight for what was fair. We taught the world that even the smallest voice can be heard. Even one act of courage can change everything." Eli smiled, a quiet confidence in his expression. "I love you, Mama." "I love you too, baby," Marissa replied. As they sat together, the wind carried the distant sounds of laughter and play, a reminder that life continues, and so does hope. The safe that had once held Whitmore's secrets remained a symbol, but not of fear or greed. It was now a testament to the power of transparency, courage, and justice. The lessons of the past, documented, shared, and amplified, would guide the Foundation's work and inspire generations to come. Across the nation, children watched Eli's story unfold, parents saw the impact of advocacy and truth, and communities recognized that speaking up was not optional, it was essential. The legacy of one child's bravery and one mother's faith had created ripples that extended far beyond their own lives, reaching people who had been silenced, overlooked, or dismissed. The story of Eli and Marissa was no longer just a personal victory. It had become a beacon, a call to action for anyone who encountered injustice, discrimination, or cruelty. It reminded the world that courage is not measured by age, wealth, or status. It is measured by the willingness to stand for what is right, to confront fear, and to demand dignity for all. And so, as night fell and the stars emerged above the Anderson home, the quiet hum of possibility filled the air. Somewhere, another child was watching, learning, gathering courage. Somewhere, another parent was deciding whether to trust their child's voice. Somewhere, another witness was preparing to stand, record, or speak. The story was far from over. Its end was not a conclusion but a beginning. A beginning for families, for communities, and for society itself. A beginning that demonstrated the undeniable truth. Justice, once awakened, cannot be silenced. Marissa and Eli turned inside, ready to rest, ready to continue their work, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. They had learned that even a single moment, a single 60-second act of brilliance, courage, and integrity, could transform lives, dismantle injustice, and light a path toward a better future. And as the Foundation's work continued, as new voices joined the chorus of change, one truth remained certain. The safe was open, the lessons were clear, and the world had seen what courage, honesty, and persistence could achieve. The story of Eli Anderson and Marissa Anderson, of the safe that revealed the truth, of the empire that fell under the weight of its own corruption, would be told for generations. And in classrooms, boardrooms, community centers, and homes, it would inspire countless others to ask themselves the same question. When faced with injustice, will you stand, speak, and act, or will you look away? The answer for Eli, Marissa, and all who chose courage had already been written. If Eli and Marissa's journey inspired you, imagine what's waiting in the next story. At Echoes of Life Stories, we bring you real, powerful tales of courage, resilience, and justice. Stories that touch the heart, awaken the mind, and remind us all that even one small act can change everything. Subscribe now and join a community that celebrates hope, bravery, and the power of speaking up. Every week, we share unforgettable stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Be the first to see them. Be the first to feel inspired. Click subscribe and turn on notifications, because the next story could be the one that changes your life. Or the world. Echoes of Life Stories. Witness courage. Feel hope. Inspire change.